My name is Emma Collins. I'm 34 years old, and until about 6 weeks ago, I believed that if you built your life carefully enough, nothing really collapsed without warning. Not overnight. Not without signs. I work as an IT project manager for a regional bank in Raleigh, North Carolina. My world runs on structure, timelines, risk assessments, contingency plans. I don't guess. I don't improvise. I build systems that hold. Or at least I thought I did. Ethan Cole is 31. My fiancé, or he was. He's the kind of man people notice the second he walks into a room. Easy smile, confident posture, always aware, almost instinctively, of how he's being perceived. He works in marketing for a boutique fitness company, which fits him perfectly. Everything in his world revolves around image, presentation, control. We had been together a little over 4 years, engaged for 10 months, living together in my condo, one I bought long before I met him. Every square foot paid for, with late nights and careful decisions. We were supposed to get married in 7 weeks. From the outside, we looked solid. Engagement photos done, venue booked, guest list finalized, save the dates already mailed, honeymoon flights reserved. We even had a joint wedding account with $14,800 in it and a shared spreadsheet with every vendor, every deposit, every due date, color-coded. Because I'm that kind of person. But the real problem had nothing to do with wedding planning. It was Ethan's idea of love. To him, love wasn't something you built quietly over time. It wasn't consistency. It wasn't showing up, being honest, sharing responsibility. No. Love to Ethan was something you proved under pressure. Constantly. If he got quiet, I was supposed to chase. If he said, "Leave me alone," I was supposed to understand he meant come closer. If he got upset and walked out, I was supposed to follow. If I didn't, I was cold, detached, not romantic enough. The first time I noticed it, we'd been dating about 6 months. We were at a brewery. An old coworker of mine hugged me hello. Quick, harmless. I didn't think anything of it. Ethan did. Not in the moment, not directly. On the drive home, he stared out the window longer than usual, then finally asked, "You really didn't care?" I glanced over. About what? That he touched you like that. I blinked, confused. I trusted the situation. He went quiet after that. Not angry, not loud, just distant. Like I'd failed something I didn't know I was being tested on. A year later, after a minor argument about his spending habits, he turned off his location for 4 hours. 4. I called twice, texted 3 times, nothing. When he finally answered, he sounded calm. Too calm. "I just wanted to see if you'd fight for me," he said. Apparently, concern wasn't enough. He wanted urgency, panic, proof. I should have paid attention then. But every time there was an explanation. Stress, work pressure, emotional overwhelm. And every time, I did what calm people do when they love someone. I tried to understand. That was my mistake. The moment everything finally broke happened on a Saturday night. We were out with our friends Mason and Claire, just the 4 of us at a steakhouse in North Hills. Nothing fancy. Low lighting, good wine, easy conversation. At first, it was normal. We talked about catering costs, seating arrangements, whether open bars were worth the money. Then Claire laughed and said, "Wedding planning is basically a stress test for relationships." Ethan smiled. Not casually, not joking, deliberately. "Actually," he said, leaning back in his chair, "real love is seeing whether someone will fight for you when it matters." Mason raised an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" Ethan glanced at me, then back at them. "Like, if I ever walked out or called something off, Emma should know better than to just let me go." Claire gave a small, awkward laugh like she thought he was kidding. I didn't. I set my glass down carefully. "If someone tells me they're done," I said evenly, "I take them seriously." Ethan's eyes met mine across the table. "That's because you think respect means distance," he said. "Real love closes the distance." I held his gaze. Real love usually doesn't create distance on purpose. That should have ended it. It didn't. The entire drive home, he kept pushing, saying I was too literal, too calm, too corporate in relationships. By the time we walked into the condo, it wasn't a conversation anymore. It was a performance he expected me to participate in. He dropped his keys onto the kitchen island harder than necessary. Then he turned to me, arms crossed. "If you loved me," he said, "you'd fight for me." I was standing by the sink, still holding my purse, and I remember this strange feeling washing over me. Not anger, not heartbreak, just quiet, clarity. I set my purse down slowly. "Love isn't a cage match," I said. His jaw tightened. "Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I need someone who actually fights harder." I nodded once. Then you probably shouldn't marry me. He stared at me like he was waiting for the real answer, like this was still part of the script. So what? He said. You're just giving up? I shook my head slightly. No, I said. I'm stepping out of a test I never agreed to take. He rolled his eyes, exhaled sharply, and walked into the bedroom. A minute later, my phone buzzed. A text from him. You're being dramatic. Come in here and fix this. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I typed back. I'm not playing this anymore. That night, I slept in my office. And for the first time in 4 years, I slept without feeling like I had something to prove. Sunday morning, Ethan acted like we'd had a normal argument. Not a relationship-ending argument. Not a conversation where he had basically told me marriage meant spending the rest of my life chasing him through emotional obstacle courses. Just a disagreement. He walked into the kitchen in sweatpants and one of my old college hoodies, rubbed his eyes, and asked, "Do you want coffee?" I was already sitting at the dining table with my laptop open. The wedding contracts were pulled up. Venue, catering, photography, planner, florist, DJ. All of it arranged in clean tabs across the screen like a life I was already stepping out of. Ethan poured himself coffee and said, "We still need to talk to the linen vendor at noon." I looked up at him. He kept going like nothing had cracked. And my sister asked about groomsmen gift options. I think we should just order the leather ones. That was the moment I understood he thought Saturday night was another test. Another scene. Another emotional storm I would absorb, forgive, and quietly file away. But I wasn't filing it away this time. At 9:12, I called the venue. At 9:26, I canceled the catering package. At 9:41, I emailed the photographer. At 10:03, I called Lee, our planner. She had been wonderful through the whole process. Organized, patient, unusually good at noticing what people weren't saying. When I told her the wedding was off, she went silent for about 3 seconds. Then she said carefully, "Emma, are you sure?" "Yes." Another pause. Then her voice shifted from emotional to professional. "Do you want me to notify the florist and DJ, or would you prefer to do it yourself?" That question told me everything. She could hear it in my voice. This wasn't impulsive. This was done. So I did the rest myself. By 11:30, every major vendor had written confirmation. Some deposits were partially refundable, some were gone forever. I made a spreadsheet showing what was recoverable, what was lost, and what remained in the wedding account after pending charges cleared. The non-refundable losses came to $4,670 by the end of that day. Brutal. Still cheaper than marrying someone who treated love like a loyalty obstacle course. Around noon, Ethan came into the dining area. He saw the printed contracts first, then the spreadsheet, then my face. "What is this?" he asked. "The wedding is canceled." At first, he laughed. Not because it was funny, because he genuinely thought I was bluffing. Then he picked up the venue confirmation and read it. His face changed so quickly it almost looked painful. "You canceled our wedding because I said one thing?" "No," I said. "I canceled it because you meant it." His eyes filled immediately. Real tears, shaking hands, shock. And for one horrible second, I hated how much I still loved him, because part of me wanted to stand up, cross the room, and comfort him. But then he said, "You were supposed to fight for me." And that sentence killed whatever doubt was left. I looked at him quietly. "That is exactly why I canceled it." His expression hardened. "You're heartless." "No." "You're humiliating me." "No." No healthy woman throws away 4 years over one conversation. "I'm not throwing away 4 years," I said. "I'm refusing 40 more built on tests, traps, and emotional homework." He stared at me like I had become someone he didn't recognize. Maybe I had. Then I transferred $565 into his personal account. Half of the remaining wedding funds after pending charges and shared vendor losses were accounted for. I printed the spreadsheet and slid it across the table. "This is your half," I said. "The rest covers unrecoverable deposits we both agreed to when we booked everything." He didn't even look at it. "I cannot believe you're turning love into math." "No," I said. "I'm turning the breakup into math. Love got turned into a game a long time ago." By evening, he was upstairs on the phone with his sister Madison, crying loudly enough for me to hear from the office. 2 hours later, he texted me from the bedroom. "I need a few days to think." I replied, "You have until Wednesday to arrange pickup or temporary storage. After that, I'm changing the garage code." He sent back one sentence. "You'll regret this when you calm down." That was the thing. I was calm. I didn't regret it on Monday. Or Tuesday. What I got instead was chaos. Ethan spent the first 48 hours telling people I had abandoned him over wedding stress. According to his version, he made one emotional comment, I overreacted, and now he was the victim of a woman too emotionally rigid to handle real love. Madison texted me first. Emma, are you seriously blowing up a whole wedding over a fight? I sent her a screenshot of Ethan's text from Saturday night. You're being dramatic. Come in here and fix this. Then I added the line he'd said in the kitchen. If you loved me, you'd fight for me. I wrote, I'm not marrying someone who needs to threaten loss to feel loved. Madison didn't answer for 4 hours. When she finally did, all she said was, this is worse than he told me. Ethan's friend Jade was less reasonable. Jade called from an unknown number and said Ethan just needed reassurance, and I was punishing him for being vulnerable. Vulnerable. That was the word they kept using for manipulation. I said, telling someone to prove love under threat isn't vulnerability. Jade scoffed. You women always say that when a man asks for emotional effort. I hung up. By Tuesday, Ethan had moved most of his clothes and toiletries to Madison's apartment across town, but he still had the condo garage opener and kept coming back without notice. Not to talk. Not to reconcile. To hover. To see whether I looked miserable enough for him. So Wednesday morning, I changed the garage code, deactivated the opener, and installed a camera over the interior entry door. It cost me $189 plus installation. Worth every dollar. That same afternoon, he sent me a 5-page email titled, What Love Should Have Looked Like. I am not exaggerating. 5 full pages. It was part apology, part accusation, part romance novel, part courtroom speech. He said he had always dreamed of a woman who would cross the room, cross the city, cross her own pride for him. He said my refusal to chase made him feel fundamentally unloved. He said canceling the wedding proved I had never understood his heart. But what jumped out at me wasn't the drama. It was one sentence in the middle. I thought you knew I'd never actually leave. There it was again. The same core issue every time. He wanted the threat without the consequence. He wanted to yank the cord and trust I would come running. I didn't reply. Thursday brought the fake crisis. At 3:18 p.m., I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Ethan using someone else's phone. His voice was shaky. My mom collapsed, he said. I'm at the hospital. I need you. For one stupid half-second, my whole body reacted. I stood up so fast my chair rolled back into the wall. Then I asked, which hospital? Silence. Then he said, does it matter? Yes, I said. He hung up. 40 minutes later, Jade posted an Instagram story from a rooftop bar in downtown Raleigh. Ethan was in the background holding a mimosa. Hair perfect. Shirt crisp. Laughing like nothing in the world was wrong. I screenshotted it and saved it to a folder I had already started calling. In case this gets dumber, that night I had my consultation with Monica, a family attorney a coworker recommended after hearing the basics. It cost $450. She listened, read the screenshots, reviewed the wedding spreadsheet. Then she told me 3 things. 1, keep everything documented. 2, don't communicate emotionally. 3, in North Carolina, engagement rings are generally treated as conditional gifts tied to the wedding happening. Meaning, if the wedding was off, I could request mine back. I honestly hadn't even thought about the ring. That was how mentally done I was. But Monica told me to request it politely, in writing, with a deadline. So I did. Friday morning, I texted Ethan, please return the ring by Monday. Monica will handle everything else going forward. He called instantly. You got a lawyer over this? I got advice. Wow, he said. 4 years and you need legal advice to talk to me? I closed my eyes. 4 years, I said. And you still think love means ambushing me emotionally. Then I hung up. The strangest call came Saturday morning, from Denise, Ethan's mother. I braced myself when I saw her name, but when I answered, she only sounded tired. Emma, she said, I need the truth. I waited. Ethan says you canceled the wedding because he wanted reassurance. That doesn't sound complete. So I told her, not every detail, just enough. The pattern, the tests, the restaurant conversation, the line in the kitchen. The fake hospital call. There was a long silence. Then Denise said, send me the screenshots. So I did. 10 minutes later, she called back. Her voice was quieter. Love is not a fire drill. I just sat there silent. Then she said, Ethan used to do this in high school too. Break up with girls to see if they would beg. Pick fights before dances to see who showed up at the door. She paused. I thought he had grown out of it. Apparently not. Then Denise said something I still think about. Emma, wanting to be chosen is human. Creating fear to force proof is not. That was the first time anyone from Ethan's side had said the obvious out loud. And I didn't realize how badly I needed to hear it until my hands started shaking around the phone. Sunday was the scheduled pickup. I treated it the same way I had treated everything else since Saturday. Systematically. I made an inventory list. Clothes, shoes, toiletries, books, decor. The air fryer he bought, 2 framed prints, 3 sealed storage bins labeled by room. I even arranged everything in clean rows by the garage. Not because I cared about appearances. Because I didn't want one more version of this story floating around later where I had been careless or cruel or vague enough for him to rewrite. At 12:20, Ethan arrived. 20 minutes late. With Jade. Of course. Jade walked in first, like she was there to supervise a hostage exchange. Ethan followed behind her, quieter than usual. No tears this time, no shaking hands. Different strategy. He looked at me and softened his expression. "Emma," he said gently, "can we not do this like strangers?" I didn't move. "We're not doing anything," I said. "Your items are labeled." His eyes dropped to the printed inventory in my hand. And just like that, the softness cracked. "You made a list?" he said. "Yes." "You're serious with this?" "I've been serious since Sunday." Jade crossed her arms. "You're really turning a breakup into an audit?" I ignored her. Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You're acting like I did something unforgivable." I held his gaze. "You tried to make love conditional on performance." "That's not what You told me to prove it under threat." His jaw tightened. "That's not threat, Emma. That's emotional effort." "No," I said quietly. "Effort doesn't require fear." For a second, something flickered across his face. Not anger, not manipulation, something closer to recognition. But it disappeared just as fast. He exhaled sharply and turned away, starting to gather his things. For a few minutes, it was almost normal. Boxes lifted, shoes packed, zippers closing. Then he walked into the living room, and everything shifted again. "I'm taking this," he said, resting his hand on my espresso machine. "No," he blinked. "We used this together. I paid for it." "That's not how relationships work." That's exactly how ownership works." Jade scoffed. "Wow, you're really nickel and diming a man you were about to marry." I pulled up my phone. Receipts, dates, amounts. I didn't say a word. Silence stretched across the room. Ethan's expression hardened again. He moved on. "The 75-inch TV. No. The blue luggage set my aunt gave me 2 Christmases before I even met him. No. Each time the same pattern. He framed it as shared. I answered with fact. Eventually, frustration replaced strategy. He turned toward me again, slower this time. Then he did something I had been waiting for. He touched the ring on his finger. "If I'm still wearing this," he said, "maybe you shouldn't be acting so final." There it was. The last piece. The last illusion. I didn't raise my voice. "Return it by Monday." His hand froze. His eyes locked onto mine like he hadn't expected that answer. Like somehow he thought the ring still gave him leverage. Slowly, deliberately, he pulled it off. "Set it on the kitchen island." "I hope this was worth it," he said. I didn't hesitate. Peace usually is. That was the first moment he looked truly shaken. Not emotional, not dramatic, not performing. Shaken. Because I wasn't folding. Because the script had ended, and I hadn't stayed for the next scene. They finished loading the car in silence after that. Jade didn't say another word. Ethan didn't look back when he left. But the chaos didn't end there. It just changed form. Update 2. The ring came back Monday. The rest kept going. Ethan still believed the relationship was salvageable. Not through conversation. Not through accountability. Through pressure. Through confusion. Through control. 2 days later, Lee, our wedding planner, called me. "Emma," she said carefully, "I just got a voicemail from Ethan." I leaned back in my chair. "Let me guess," I said. "He wants to reinstate everything." "Yes." She forwarded it. I listened. His voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm people use when they're trying to sound credible. "Emma is overwhelmed," he said in the message. "She's not herself right now. We just need to reverse the cancellations before she regrets this." I closed my eyes briefly. "She won't do it," Lee said. "I know. And even if she wanted to, we'd need new contracts, new deposits, everything." "Thank you," I said. There was a pause. Then Lee added quietly, "This doesn't feel like love, Emma. It feels like control." "Yeah," I said, "it does." 2 days after that, he crossed a line I didn't expect. He emailed my boss. The subject line read, "Personal concern regarding Emma Collins." Inside, he wrote that I was going through an emotional breakdown related to the canceled wedding, that I was behaving unpredictably, that I might be making compromised financial decisions. It was written just carefully enough to sound concerned, and just dirty enough to plant doubt. My boss, Connor, called me into his office that afternoon. He didn't look angry. He looked cautious. "Is there anything I need to know?" he asked. I sat down across from him, and for the first time since all of this started, I didn't feel defensive. I felt prepared. I told him the truth. Brief, clean. Then I showed him everything. The vendor confirmations, the fake hospital call, the screenshots, the attorney consultation note. Connor read silently for about 3 minutes. Then he leaned back in his chair. "Keep this away from work," he said. That's the plan." He nodded once. "Good," he added, "because you're still leading the rollout next month." Then he deleted Ethan's email, right in front of me. That was the moment something shifted inside me. Not relief, not satisfaction, certainty. When someone outside the relationship can see the pattern in 5 minutes, it becomes a lot harder to doubt yourself. But Ethan wasn't done. Thursday afternoon, security called my office. There's a man here asking for you," the receptionist said. "He has a box." I already knew. I took the elevator down with the building manager standing nearby. Ethan was waiting in the lobby, holding a bakery box and a photo album. He smiled when he saw me, like this was some kind of romantic gesture. "I brought your favorite cupcakes," he said. I didn't move. "You can't come here," I said. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Emma, stop doing this in front of strangers. I'm trying to save us." I met his eyes. "No," I said calmly. "You're trying to corner me in public, so I won't say no." Something in his expression tightened. Then he raised his voice just enough for people nearby to hear. "I guess some women only know how to love when it's easy." I didn't flinch. Real love doesn't need an audience. The building manager stepped forward. Security moved in. Ethan was escorted out. Inside the bakery box was a note. I photographed it before throwing it away. The right kind of love fights back. I sent the photo to Monica that night, and for the first time, I authorized the next step. Friday morning, Monica sent the cease and desist letter. Clean, direct, professional, no emotional language, no ambiguity, no contact, no workplace visits, no communication through friends or family except for remaining property coordination. Simple, necessary, and completely ineffective, at least at first. Ethan violated it that same weekend. Saturday night, around 9:40 p.m., I heard banging on the front door. Not knocking. Banging. Loud enough to echo through the condo. I muted the TV and stayed where I was on the couch. Then I checked the camera feed on my phone. Ethan. And Madison. His sister looked tense. He looked agitated. "Emma!" he shouted through the door. "Open this!" I didn't move. "Oh, we need the rest of my things." There were no rest of his things. Everything had been accounted for, documented, picked up. That didn't stop him. "You took my mom's bracelet," he yelled, "and the garment bag with the veil." Neither item had ever been in my condo. Neither item had been on the inventory. Neither item had been left behind. He kept going anyway. The volume rising. The accusations getting sharper. Madison chimed in, trying to sound controlled, but clearly unraveling. "Emma, just open the door. Let's fix this without making it worse." Fix this. Like this was a misunderstanding. Like this was still negotiable. I let them knock for another 30 seconds. Then I called non-emergency. 2 officers arrived about 15 minutes later. I opened the door then. Ethan turned toward me immediately. "There you are," he said, like we were picking up a conversation instead of standing in the middle of a scene he had created. "She has my property," he told the officers. "She won't return it." I didn't raise my voice. "I have a full inventory list," I said. "Photos, pickup timestamps, documentation of everything removed from the property." One of the officers nodded. "Let's see it." I handed over the binder. Printed list. Itemized entries. Photos of each group of belongings. Sign-off timestamps from the pickup. Ring return confirmation. Attorney letter. Everything. The officer flipped through it slowly, then looked at Ethan. "When was the last time you saw the missing items?" he asked. Ethan hesitated. "I don't know exactly." Madison shifted beside him. "I think the garment bag might still be in the hall closet," she said. Silence. Heavy. Immediate. The officer blinked once. Ethan turned towards her slowly. If looks could erase people, Madison would have disappeared right there. The officer closed the binder. "Sir," he said calmly, "that doesn't sound like missing property." The bracelet? Not missing either. Ethan found it 10 minutes later. In the side pocket of a makeup case he had already taken earlier that week. No apology. No acknowledgement. Just a tightening jaw and a refusal to meet my eyes. The officers told them to leave. Madison went first. Ethan lingered a second longer. Then from the curb, he looked back at me. "I just wanted to know I mattered enough for you to fight," he said. There was no anger in his voice this time. Just something quieter. Something almost honest. And for a brief moment, I saw the version of him I had loved. The one who wanted reassurance. The one who didn't know how to ask for it without turning it into a test. But it didn't change anything. "You mattered enough for honesty," I said. You just didn't want that kind." He stared at me for a second longer, then got into the car. The door slammed hard enough to trigger the alarm. After that, things changed. Not emotionally, legally. Monica escalated. A second letter went out Monday morning. This one referenced the workplace incident, the false property claim, the violation of the cease and desist, and it made something very clear. Any further harassment would justify a protective order. That finally landed. Not because Ethan suddenly understood boundaries, but because the language had shifted. There was nothing romantic left to twist, no emotional angle to reinterpret, just consequences. There was one last loose end, the honeymoon. I had booked the flights using points from my travel card. The resort deposit, $1,860, was on my card. 2 days after the second letter went out, the resort called me. "Hi, this is regarding your reservation," the woman said. "We received a request to convert it into a solo booking under a different guest." I closed my eyes briefly. "Ethan?" I asked. "Yes, of course." I let out a slow breath. "Cancel the reservation," I said. "There will be a $300 processing fee." "That's fine." The rest converted into travel credit. Simple. Final. 30 minutes later, I got a text from a new number. "You're taking everything." I stared at it for a moment, then replied once. "No, I'm closing everything." And I blocked that number too. A week later, the final exchange happened. Not with Ethan, with Denise. She arrived with him, but it was different this time. No Jade, no Madison, just quiet. Ethan barely spoke. He stayed in the garage, loading the last 2 storage bins into the car. Denise handled everything else. She looked around the condo slowly, at the labeled boxes, the cleared shelves, the absence of chaos. "Thank you," she said softly, "for not making this uglier than it already is." I nodded once. It didn't need to be. She studied me for a moment, then said, "I think Ethan confused drama with passion." I didn't respond right away, because she wasn't wrong. "I loved him," I said finally. "I just couldn't live like that." She nodded. Once. Like she understood more than she wanted to. Ethan came back inside briefly to grab the last bin. He didn't look at me, didn't say anything, and for the first time since all of this started, he didn't try to change the outcome. They left without another word. The door closed, and just like that, it was over. Not the relationship. That had ended weeks ago. This was something else. The end of the noise. The pressure. The constant feeling that I was one wrong response away from failing something invisible. The condo felt different after that. Quieter. Not empty. Just still. And for the first time in a long time, still felt safe. It's been just over 3 months since I canceled the wedding. No, we didn't get back together. Yes, it was the right decision. Once the second letter went out and the final property exchange was done, the contact stopped. Completely. No more calls. No more surprise visits. No more emotional ambushes disguised as concern. Monica told me the paper trail was strong enough that Ethan likely understood one more misstep would end badly for him. So he stopped. Not because he finally understood, because he had to. The final numbers looked exactly like I expected. We lost $4,670 in non-refundable deposits, venue administrative fees, planner retainer, florist holding deposit, custom invitations, suit alterations, miscellaneous charges that add up faster than you realize when you're planning a wedding that never happens. We recovered partial refunds from catering, photography, DJ, and rentals. After everything cleared, Ethan and I each walked away with $5,065 from the wedding account. The honeymoon credit stayed with me. After the cancellation fee, I had $1,560 in travel credit. I used part of it last month. A 4-day trip to Asheville, by myself. I slept late, went hiking without checking my phone, ate dinner without explaining anything to anyone. No tension, no decoding, no wondering whether silence meant something I was supposed to fix. It was quiet in a way I didn't realize I had been craving. The condo feels different now too. Not empty, just settled. I turned what was supposed to be the gift storage room into a reading space. Bookshelves, a chair by the window, soft light in the evenings. The wedding binder is gone. The seating chart is gone. The centerpiece samples are gone. I kept one thing. The spreadsheet from the day I canceled everything. Not because I'm holding on to it, because it reminds me that clarity has a cost. But confusion costs more. Work got better too. Connor kept me on the rollout project. 6 weeks after the breakup, I got promoted to senior project lead. My salary bumped to $121,000. The timing almost made me laugh. While Ethan was emailing people about my instability, my life was getting more stable, more grounded, more mine. As for Ethan, I only know bits and pieces. mostly through mutual friends. And even that has started to fade. I heard he told some people I panicked at commitment, told others I didn't understand deep love. There was even a version where I canceled everything because I was afraid of emotional intimacy. But none of those stories lasted very long. Not when people saw the screenshots. Not when they heard the full pattern. Especially not after Denise. About a month ago, she sent me a handwritten note. No drama, no defense. Just honesty. She apologized for not recognizing sooner that Ethan had always confused anxiety with romance. Inside the envelope was a check for $600. Her contribution toward the invitation reprint costs. Apparently, her side of the family had requested last-minute additions that caused the second batch. I didn't deposit it right away. It sat on my desk for a week. Then I called Monica. She said accepting reimbursement for shared expenses was completely reasonable, so I deposited it. And somehow, that felt like closure. Not emotional, practical, balanced. And that mattered more than I expected. People always ask this part. Yes, I've gone on a few dates. Nothing intense. Nothing forced. A friend from work set me up with Daniel. He's a pediatric nurse. Quiet, steady. The kind of person who listens without trying to steer the conversation. We had coffee first, then dinner. The kind that lasts 3 hours because neither of you is watching the clock. Because there's nothing to decode. No subtext hiding behind every sentence. One night, after a long shift, he texted me. Home safe, exhausted, going to sleep. That was it. No hidden meaning. No test. No expectation that I would respond in a specific way to prove something. I remember staring at my phone for a moment. Not confused. Just aware. This is what emotionally healthy communication looks like. Clear. Direct. Enough. The biggest shift for me wasn't losing Ethan. It was losing the constant feeling that I was being evaluated. Every word, every reaction, every moment. Like I was one response away from failing something invisible. I didn't realize how tired I was until I stopped bracing all the time. That's the part no one tells you about relationships built on tests. You can love someone deeply and still be exhausted by the version of love they demand. Because love isn't proving yourself every week under new conditions. It isn't panic. It isn't pursued on command. It isn't one person creating distance so the other can perform devotion loudly enough to soothe insecurity. That's not romance. That's pressure. That's emotional debt with interest. I didn't cancel the wedding because I stopped loving Ethan overnight. I canceled it because I finally understood something I had been avoiding for a long time. His version of love would never allow peace to exist. There would always be another test. Another moment where honesty lost to drama because drama felt more intense. Another situation where I was expected to react instead of respond. Intensity is not love. Noise is not passion. And someone asking you to prove love by tolerating manipulation isn't asking for love at all. They're asking for surrender. I was willing to be patient. I was willing to communicate. I was willing to build something real. But I was not willing to spend a marriage auditioning for a role I had already earned. So when he said, "If you loved me, you'd fight for me," I finally understood something simple. The only real fight left was the one for my own peace. And I chose it.